Hmm. Just a moment while I just check some settings here. Then we'll get this thing, kick this thing off. Okay. So it's pretty, I see the Texas evening over here. Quite a wintry sky behind me. And it's that time of year, when people, certainly where I come from, this is something I find Americans find hard to understand about British people, is that we have this obsession about, particularly at Christmas, we have ghost stories. It's something we always did in the winter. And I remember as a child, New Year, going to my grandparents' house, and they lived in the country. And my grandpa would tell these incredible stories. And it was based on local folklore. Now, my grandmother, she was a farmer's daughter. They had a lot of old folklore, and quite interesting because in her parents' case, my great grandparents, they used to have a lot of Roma people, travellers would come, and some Scottish tinkers, which are similar. They're similar lifestyle, but genetically different from the Roma. They're not the same people. The tinkers are an interesting bunch in themselves. Let's talk about them. They are like they're like the descendants of the original people who lived in those countries before the arrival of the Celts, and then of course the Normans, and of course the Vikings in between. So basically, it would be the Celts first. Celts came and settled those lands, and the original inhabitants who lived in these places tended to keep to themselves, and basically that's a lot to do with fairy folklore, where fairy folklore comes from, because they generally lived apart from the people, the Celts, the original settlers, and for a long time they were left alone. It was a big country. There was lots of woodland, or it was practically jungle. Let's get things, incredible. There's parts of Scotland until the 18th century, when General Wade and people like that found that they had to build roads and find ways into the Highlands so they could subdue the Highlanders, and that showed you the raw nature of it, how difficult it was. In fact, if you ever go to Aberfoyle in Scotland, there's a great place there, which is the Queen Elizabeth Forest Park. And what's interesting about that is that through the middle of the park, there is actually a drover's trail, and that drover's trail would have been the way that people like Rob Roy, and as late as that, we're into the 1700s here. They had a way through the glens and the forest and whatever that was safe to travel and gave them relative amount of cover. And basically, if you stole someone's sheep, that's the way you would go. So a lot of hold on, my heater's getting to me. Oh, turn it down a bit. So there was a lot of that going on. Rustlers and people like that. In general, villains like Rob Roy. I'm allowed to say that because he's my ancestor, so I'm allowed to call him a villain. So anyway, point is though, so you see that there is a very rural almost natural element to a lot of it. So it was possible, certainly possible back then, in those past centuries, for people to exist. And in fact, if you look at the Reverend James Kirk, who was the minister of Aberfoyle, sorry, not Aberfoyle, he was in oh god, Rob Roy again, Balquhidder, or Balquhidder, as a local would tell you is the proper pronunciation of it. You would probably read it as Balquhidder, but it's Balquhidder. Anyway, he was the minister back then, and he was quite involved in trying to put a case for saving people who might have been accused as witches, because he was shown that it was an older belief system that was not a problem, and quite compatible with Christianity. And it was written in his book of the time, which became the premier source for all fairy literature in the world. And he would talk about the local place there, the Hill of Doon, where oddly enough he died. They found him in a fairy ring. Some people say he was a toker of the magic mushroom. So that says a lot. But fairies, he talked about them as if they were an actual existing bunch of people, and talks about their history and how they built the ancient earthworks that you can see in the mountains to this day. And even the Hill of Doon itself has standing stones and things like that. And you know what? There could be some truth in it, because they probably were the original inhabitants, who were very small and tended to live in the forest, and would come in season to work on the farms. And even in, as I say, my grandmother's time, she recalled Scottish tinkers coming to the farm. They would arrive at a time when the crops were being gathered in on our parents' farm, and they would live there. And so did some Roma. Some Roma would come also. And as a young child, she ran with the Roma and played with them when they would come in season, and made many great friends, and learned a lot about not just things that had been handed down to her for an understanding of plants and the properties, and things that we would today some people would call Wicca or witchcraft. It's folklore. A lot of it is just natural, how people survived, knowing the nature of plants. It was how to cure yourself and feed yourself. You want to know if that thing is safe to eat, or whether it's going to poison you, and whether it's going to help you if you rub it on your skin. So my grandmother had an incredible amount of knowledge like this. And of course in Scotland we have the additional word we call old ladies with a lot of knowledge. We call them spaewives. And I guess she was probably qualifying as a spaewife. So, is that a cult? I don't think so. Now, why am I talking about this? I was someone on my LinkedIn page was talking about, how can it be you're a very analytical person? You're obviously a data scientist and all this. You do all this stuff, and yet out of the blue you pull your tarot cards and do a reading. And that's why not? Why not? So, and I put part of that down to generally it's more than just those influences. It's growing up in Scotland generally. I mean, when you can go to places like the Hill of Doon, then you can see some really curious place. And to go there and basically commune. I mean, even the trees. We're talking about very, very. If you got to remember the Celts found spirits and rivers, they had good and bad. They had there was all kinds of bad things like kelpies. But, they saw animals, trees, rocks, water, lakes. They found all kinds of spirits in that. They're very spiritual people. And this somehow was incorporated into basic belief and even Christianity in the UK. Parts of the UK where even to this day you go into a church, and if it's an old enough place, you might look into the rafters or on the wall and see a carving of the Green Man, a very pagan symbol. I have a Green Man downstairs. I purchased not too long ago, and I plan to hang it on the wall outside for my garden. So that shows you I think I don't. I see it as like the true meaning of pagan in that the Pagani, where people were on the land, landed people. They were because what was it we've come to associate as cultish or whatever, like heathen and pagan, are actually quite normal words. It just means country dweller, people who lived in the country in different ways, older ways. And I could imagine maybe going back a couple of centuries, the people in the cities would probably look down on people. They thought they were it's the same as any different from today, where they think they're so sophisticated. They will look down on people who are less sophisticated and just more earthy types. And I see it like today we're moving backwards. A lot of people who city dwellers who want to embrace the old ways and rediscover them. Sadly, we've lost a lot of them, and with every elderly person who passes on, we lose even more. I mean, so I was telling about my grandfather at the start of this, and how he would gather us all around New Year, and he would begin to tell incredible ghost stories, which no one wrote down. Unfortunately, this is the part of something that the Scots and the Irish share, and it's called the oral testimony. To have oral testimony of things from past centuries, which are literally handed down and within families. It could be all kinds of things, from genealogy to actual ghost stories. And this is real. And my grandfather, unfortunately, as I say, no one recorded them or wrote them down, so we just don't know. We can't remember. I've vague memories of some of it, and I've racked my brain at times. I've written some short stories in the past and even plays. I've racked my brains trying to just remember some of it, some of the ghost stories. So I can remember certainly one very, very scary place called, it's near Slamanan, and there was a hanging tree there. This is real. So this is a folklore issue, something that's come down from centuries ago, and there's a tribal memory of this tree where the bad guys would be taken and hung for whatever reason. And this was on a private road, which was a toll road. You had to pay a toll to get down that road, and the reason I can say that story is probably true is that my grandfather's family owned the toll house. They owned the toll house on the road. So he used to tell this terrible story about this guy, and unfortunately I can't remember it. So there was this little bridge, and basically there was this guy who was, I think, was he beheaded? I think he might have been. And he would appear there, and he would do all kinds of nasty stuff. And my only memory of it was as a kid in the back of my dad's car. We were going across that bridge, and you got to see that this is almost like a moor you're looking at. There's some trees to the left, if memory serves. There's a little hump bridge, and this over here was just fields, like moorland. And picture this, if you will. It was a misty, misty evening. And I was a kid looking at the back, and I was petrified. I mean, that's the kind of. I mean, this isn't just a ghost story. This is something that I'm looking there, and there's my dad saying, "Oh, this is that there was probably where the hanging tree was." That doesn't add to my confidence about things. So it's a lot of places like that. So so that's just an instance of one of the stories. There was many stories like that. I was just relating them to someone recently, so they should really be. And there was another one about an actual demon appearing and being seen in the locality. It's like so all kinds of mad stories like this, that actually existed in local folklore. But you got to remember that a place like Scotland is a very earthly place where you can go into the hills, west central Scotland, and you can see these things. I mean, you just go outside the cities a few miles and you will find all kinds of things like, everyone talks about the stone rings, they talk about Stonehenge and a fascinating place in places like Orkney where the ring circles, but sometimes you just find a big enormous standing stone, or some other thing. What I'm trying to think what you call those things. When I used to work as a field service engineer and driving around the country, I used to watch for as I was driving by, because you'll find the signpost saying such and such is over there, and I would decide to take my lunch there and go and investigate the ancient monuments and even commune with them, because you're communing with your own ancestors. There's something paranormal about it. But it's comfortable. It's a comforting thing. It's not a frightening thing. I would go to these standing stones and sit there and have my sandwiches. And they could be quite remote. I never felt afraid or anything like that. I mean, okay, I'm an adult, but you still feel fear or whatever, something you think is a bit creepy. But never once. I always felt quite comfortable, and if there was anything spiritual about it, I felt welcomed. So, it's a supernatural. I don't know, and that it's like an acceptance. I'll tell you one thing that I've got this place. There's places there, in Scotland and Ireland where that there are things as older than the pyramids. For God's sake. You think this is, people talk about having to travel as far as Egypt or whatever to see, or India, which I'd love to do someday. Not knocking that, it's fantastic places. But the right in your own doorstep, and what always impressed me as a young person is I could go up and touch it. And touch something that my ancestors put there 5,000 years ago. It's just insane. That's and it's like I'm very open-minded when it comes to ghosts and things like that. Do I believe in them? And demons, and I think I probably do. It's just I'm undecided. And saying that, I've had some experiences. In my parents' current house, I've had some weird things there. Very weird, very weird. Always the same situation. When I was alone in the house, probably the most frightening experience I had when I was sleeping upstairs and I came downstairs into the kitchen. Because I was aware of something untoward going on that woke me. So this is the middle of the night, and I looked around the kitchen, and I looked at the window first, and I could see the lights outside streaming in. They come in through the window blind. That's why I can honestly say. Everyone says, "Oh, you're probably asleep." No, I wasn't asleep. I'm watching the window. I'm looking at the window and noting the light coming through the window blinds, and I looked over at the kitchen sink, and what I saw there was like just weird. It was like a woman's dress there, like an old-fashioned dress. It was black with white trims on the wrist here, and a white trim on the collar, like an old-fashioned thing. And but where there should have been a head, there was just darkness, and that terrified me. I didn't hang around to talk to it. I was gone upstairs and just barricaded myself in the room upstairs and stayed there. I stayed awake all night. I did not sleep. And then in the morning, I got up and I got in the car and I went for a drive to my sister's house, because I just wasn't even gonna. And I thought, oh my god, that was one terrifying thing. Then there's a couple other instances when I was asleep in my room, which is downstairs. I woke up one night where rather I was aware, people talk about night terrors or whatever, and I had this thing trying to suffocate me. And this thing was on me, the weight of it, and I forced my head to the right, like this. Am I dreaming? Is this? I mean, this is something that is so written into history. Such a thing as night terrors, or the story of the Jewish demon Lilith. If you want to look that up, this is like such an old, even historical thing. Is it a psychological condition? Is it a part of sleep paralysis, or are you actually being visited by a demon? And I believe that the weight of this thing on me was what I remembered, and I was able to force my head to the right and then get up very fast and put the light on. It was gone. Obviously, I was another time in that room. I've had several experiences in that room, but another time I left the room and I was going up. You have to go up a small staircase to a small landing there, and there's a door, cupboard door, which was a strange door, because you had to actually physically pull it across the pile in the carpet to open it. Well, it wouldn't just open by itself. It's difficult to do this. But this night, in the pitch black, there I am walking up the staircase, and all I heard was oh my god. And what it was the door of the cupboard had decided just to open itself right like that, like saying come in. And this is the creepy thing: when that cupboard door is fully blocked, it blocks your access to the staircase up out of there. Oh my god. So very calmly I just put the light on and closed the door and went about my business. But I did an exorcism on that house. I never had any experiences after that. Oddly enough, when I came to Houston to live, I was we were living in an apartment in the beginning, and I was in the shower and I heard my voice being said from the other room. This was a weird one. A woman's voice saying my name from the next room. That was one of a couple of creepy experiences in that apartment, and I don't want to disturb the rest of the people living there. So my wife and my mother-in-law, so I just kept my mouth shut about it. But there was one or two instances, and when I had the place to myself, I did an exorcism on that house also. We had to live there a bit longer. Never had any issues in this house, despite the fact it was owned by a family called Crowley. So this is incredibly true. So this is pretty safe. I don't think. Yeah, the lady that lived here told us there was a ghost of an old lady and maybe a ghost cat in this house. Maybe the cats. I think I might have saw the cat or been aware of it. We keep cats, but our cats were safely locked up in the West Wing, and up here on the landing, I pretty sure I saw a cat one night moving ahead of me. It's just it's something like catches the corner of your eye, and you're like this, and it was like a sweeping thing in the dark. I was aware of something cat-sized moving very fast. Other than that, no big worries. Strange noise in the night. I think I feel very comfortable in this house. I think my own belief is if you keep cats, you don't get ghosts. Cats and ghosts don't get on. But do I believe in ghosts? I don't know. Now, I had a weird experience in Scotland one time where we were up late. Me and my friends. Back then, I was about 19. We were in a pub, so a little bit drunk, and we came back. But it was a very misty evening, and it was a beautiful, beautiful night with the mist and the moonlight. And when you get out of the cities to the small towns, you know, on your outskirts of the small town, you can really experience real darkness, which is beautiful. Starry nights, but in this case, it wasn't a starry night. It was a misty night, and the moon was, I think it might have been a full moon, gave luminance to the mist, and I was with someone else. Me and this guy, we were walking home, and the other guys had found their houses, and we were getting back to our bit. And as we got out there, I said to him, I don't recognise that house. There was a white cottage, and he said, I don't know what that is. And we kind of looked at it for a while and just stood there and left. And I actually wrote a short story about it afterwards. The white cottage. I based it on a Sonny Bean type thing, but it wasn't much of a story. So I think it lived on the internet for a bit. I never really published it or anything, so it's one of those stories. But it that was a weird experience, and that was a shared thing with someone else. And the guy next day, this guy's name was Jim, incidentally. And the next day he came down to my place. He said to me, "You want to go look for that? I want to know what the hell that was last night." And I says, "Okay." And we'd walked a bit further than we used to do. We just enjoying the mist and the moonlight. It was a weird thing. Just drunk 19-year-olds. Let's think about this. So he said to me, "I want to go look." And we looked, and we couldn't find anything like it. It was just like an old-fashioned white cottage in a place that it shouldn't have been. You see some strange things in the night, but the windows were black. This is what made it weird. They're just black windows. We didn't get too close. Is that supernatural? I don't know. It's one of those things. There's a lot of things in Scotland that can really make you wonder. And another time, just myself this time, I saw where this guy used to keep a goat. A goat of all things. Maybe I saw the goat of Mendes. I'm not quite sure, but it was there's an old abandoned railway. It's not a railway now. It's more turned into, there's no like tracks or anything. It's just a walkway. And I was there in pitch black, and as I walked along, trying to get home, I looked up onto where the bridge used to be, and I saw what looked like two red eyes. And I thought, well, I don't think that's the goat. So goat of Mendes, maybe. So that's how it was. I mean, that's just. But it was a fascinating place. There used to be a local. Well, to be honest, she was the aunt of the local nobility. So an old lady called Grizzle, and the kids said she was a witch. Now this is a local knob, basically, and I saw her when I was a little boy. I was about 11, 12. And what I was doing was I was just myself, a little private road, and I was looking over the road, watching the lambs, of all things, in those little trees. And when I stepped down, she appeared. It's the only time I ever saw old Griselda, her name was, which is a witchy name if I've ever heard one. Griselda Hamilton, there you are. But old Grizzle, they called her. And I looked on the road, and there was this bicycle coming down it, a totally black bicycle, like hand painted, and an old lady on it wearing a costume that was like, I don't know, like Victorian. She had a black hat on and a big black gown. Not the kind of thing you'd wear on a bicycle. I was petrified because I was a little kid, and when she got to me, though, she said, "Good morning," which was nice. And so I told people I'd seen old Grizzle. Now, old Grizzle died, oddly enough, and my brother said to me, "Let's go up and we'll investigate old Grizzle's garden, you know, and I thought that's not such a good idea. But, you know, we decided to do it. When you're like 12. And we went to old Grizzle's garden and we found some bizarre things. You know, she had these little pots, you know, like almost like witches' cauldrons, and what was in them was polished stones. She obviously did these polished stone things, and it was quite incredible, some of it. There was beautiful little shiny rocks. Well, what we also found was some bizarre things down the back, which, you know, we had to watch where you... After that, we got a bit petrified where to put our feet, because she had all kinds of, like, you know, gin traps, but she had bigger than just a little trap. She had the big trap. Was that for a deer or was that for a human being? I don't know. It was just kind of creepy old lady. But certainly she was she a spay wife? I think she probably was. My sister, when she was very young, her and her friends went there to to steal apples. There was an apple orchard. And old Grizzle appeared, and she chased them with a broom, of all things. But when she got to those little ditch, she vaulted it. She vaulted the ditch and came after them, and they ran, naturally. Because this crazy old witchy lady, you don't want to go stealing her apples. Those were great apples. I used to do that myself, but we had a way of getting to them without going on land, because there was her fence ended, and the apple trees spread over. There was also an incredible plum tree that spread over onto practically the road. Me and my friends would go down that road there. We're right up in the grass verge, you know, helping ourselves to her apples, which were, you know, we considered they were like, you know, a lot of them actually fell down as well. You got windfall, you know, the wind would blow them down onto the road, and we'd eat a lot of apples and things like that. But she was creepy. So, Man United. I don't have any thoughts on Man United. Why would I discuss Man United? I don't know, man. Just noticed that. I don't know how long it's been there. No idea. So what's happening? What's happening with Man U? I don't know. I live in Texas, so I'm kind of out of the loop as far as soccer and things go. I support Glasgow Rangers from a distance. Kind of. So, to be honest, I don't know. I like to watch soccer on TV these days. I find some, I watch the Premier League sometimes. Which is amazing because, if you look at it, you have to pay for it. Same as Sky Sports in Britain, we have Fox here, and it's a subscriber channel. But if I go into, which is weird, because if I go up to the Mexican channels, because this is Texas, up to the Spanish-speaking Mexican channels, I can usually find the game for free. It's the same game. And, it's on TV. Yeah, I've done this once or twice. If it's a big game, you go to some Mexican channel and there it has been shown for free. So, but hey, ghosts and things. Yeah, jury's out on that one. I've written some short stories in the past, and I'm beginning to think I should write them again because some of it is from my own experiences. Does that make sense? Part of British folklore. Is it real, or is it? Is it something you've grown up with? Is it? I mean, how can you can? It's like, I think people are more likely to believe in these things if you grew up in a small country town or whatever, where there's some things that are just like unexplainable. And the funny thing about unexplainable things is we just carry on, don't we? You come across something uncanny or out of the ordinary, you just carry on. I mean, we used to Me and my friends used to go to a private cemetery, local landlord, local nobility, frankly. He owned that. That was where all those people were interred, and we'd go in there after dark and tell ghost stories, and that was terrifying, I can assure you. There's all kinds of crazy people in there, but that wasn't the worst one. There was at this cemetery. I did write a ghost story about one of them. It was a cemetery on the River Teeth near Calendar. And that thing actually has plague victims in it, for God's sake. A creepy, creepy, creepy place. And even in the middle of the day, there's something untoward about it. Basically, there's a little muddy track to it. And that's where the pony and trap with the corpses, the coffin would come back in the past. So quite a creepy place when you look at it. You think, yeah, and I saw that place very strange. One time it was moonlight. I had to walk past it, and the damn thing felt, to me, the way the stone's grey silver walls are, they were almost illuminated. Doesn't get more creepy than that. There's a famous Gallic poet buried in there also. I've only been there a couple of times since then. I always found the place quite unsettling. It was unsettling. But I did actually write a ghost story about that. I like that. But there's something uncanny about, and sadly the older generation have passed or are passing, and they're taking a lot of old stories with them. No one writes them down. No one cared to. Certainly my grandparents had an incredible bunch of stories and folklore. Which I'm kind of into the paranormal, and I'm kind of into pagan lifestyle. But I can only hope to relearn some of the things my grandmother knew. It's all gone. But I was just reading the other day about St. Fillan. I mean, if you ever get to that part of Scotland, the St. Fillans, it's up by Aberfoyle. Yeah. Actually, it's at Lochern Head, I believe, and you can. This is a fascinating place. You can go there where the St. Fillan actually lived in his elder years, and he would bless people there at the water. So you can go to it. This is a totally just out of the ordinary place. You just go there, and this is a place that supposedly has all this occultish, paranormal things. A lot of women go there. They want to conceive a baby. Apparently, I don't know. Who knows? And they go there. Maybe that's the place you want to go. I don't know if they go alone, but who knows? There's apparently St. Fillan as the guy to go see. So there's fascinating places like that, and you can, of course, it's a fascinating pool. I think the actual place is actually called St. Fillan's. It's right next to Lochern Head. It's a tiny little place. I think it's a hotel and like 2 houses, but the older place is still there. You just go. The supernatural. I'm looking into supernatural stories here in Texas. 1 or 2. They're quite interesting. My wife actually lived the street she lived on, I think it was the next street to her, there was like terrible thing that we made a bit of the news, and this guy, creepy guy, did some stuff. I'm going to look into that one. That's quite interesting. But I've certainly experienced some weird things as well. Going to Garner State Park, we were there, and I personally think the campsite at number 15 is haunted. Is my belief. And all kinds of weird things. That we've camped there several times, and in the night, you hear all kinds of weird, bizarre noises. And at one time, even something against our tent. No one there. You got a look, and it was like, there's no one there. Absolutely no one. The windy nights, rainy nights, you hear all kinds of bizarre noises there. And it's right at the foot of the mountain Old Baldy, which many people have committed suicide off, or fallen off. So who knows? Supernatural. Of course, I'm always on the lookout for things like that. A few places I want to investigate. I haven't done it yet, but we're going to get out to see the Martha Lights at some point. What it's all about. Oh, yeah. Wherever you are, there's something supernatural going on. Oh, I think we've chatted for quite a bit. This is ghosties, ghasties and ghoulies and lang-legged beasties and things that gang bump in the nicht. You can. I was actually thinking of maybe doing some readings. Maybe do some readings. Big fan of Emma James. I've seen some people doing it online. To be honest, I don't think they quite get it. They don't quite get the nuances of it. Perhaps because it's Americans reading it often. It's the same as my own short stories. Maybe I should dig them out and read out some ghost stories for people. Okay. So I'll get off now. Leave you to it.